searching for a suitable insult to hurl at the British, once called us a nation of shopkeepers. The phrase has been in use ever since, but it is a description of which we need not be ashamed, because, quite unwittingly, the French Emperor paid us a very fine compliment. We are a nation of shopkeepers, jolly good ones. To us, shopkeeping is no less an art and an honorable occupation than many a more spectacular career. But it must be admitted that we do tend to take our shopkeepers for granted. How many of us, for instance, ever give a second thought to the baker's plentiful supply of bread and cakes? And how many of us pause to wonder at the inviting display of fruit and vegetables at the greengrocer's or at the fishmonger's daily stocks of fresh fish? There's a story, too, behind those joints of meat at the butcher's. Milk, eggs, and other dairy produce are further examples of the variety of foodstuffs from which we can fill our larders. But do we ever consider the sources of these supplies, or distance they may have traveled? We expect the grocer to have bacon, with a selection for us to choose from. Butter, cheese, canned goods, sugar, tea, and jam are among the things the housewife buys regularly. But who fills the shopkeeper's shelves in the first place? Well, here's a clue. A railway van is delivering some of the very things we were talking about. They came on the railway. And that is the beginning of a long story. It would take all day to trace every foodstuff to its source, so we'll take just a few of them. We'll start with sugar. Sugar is made from sugar cane, grown principally in the West Indies. The cane is imported and refined in this country. It arrives in hundreds of tons at Liverpool, along with so much of Britain's imported food. The railway's part in the grocery business is beginning to take shape. Over a network of railway lines from all the principal ports and manufacturing centers, your grocer's shelves are kept well filled. The milk you get from the clean white dairy has traveled a long way, and being extremely perishable, must travel fast to arrive fresh at your breakfast table. It may have come from a farm as far away as Cumberland, one of many which has its milk collected by railway vans which rush it to a busy depot. Typical is this one at Aspatria, which yearly handles thousands of gallons. The comparatively small white stream from each farm grows into a veritable sea at places like this. Train after train of glass-lined milk tanks carry the milk to the cities. Here is one of these trains arriving at Willesden, only one of the many milk-receiving depots that serve the London area. Modern methods ensure that your milk is hygienically and speedily bottled and crated in readiness for delivery to dairies all over London. Also plays a part in supplying the dairy with eggs. There is a busy egg traffic from Ireland, and the precious cargoes come into Holyhead docks. Here they are handled with great care by the railwaymen and loaded onto wagons for quick, safe carriage. Just another part of the railway service to help the shopkeeper and his customer. But there's a lot more shopping to be done yet, so let's take a look at the list. Ah yes, a nice piece of fish for Dad's supper. Fleetwood, Lancashire, is one of Britain's busiest fishing ports, and it is completely owned by the LMS railway. Here is a direct link between the railway and the fish on your fishmonger's marble slab. Nearly 67,000 tons of fresh fish are caught and brought in by trawlers every year. The fish is packed in ice and then goes into wagons specially fitted for speedy service. Then, treated like an express, the fish train is hustled off to cities and towns all over the country. Arriving at Broad Street Station, an important London goods terminus, the fish is quickly unloaded and sent to the wholesale market. In a matter of hours, the fish has travelled from the green depths of the sea halfway across England to Billingsgate, where fish porters perform amazing balancing feats, their unique flat-topped leather hats providing a cushion for a whole pile of fish boxes. The salesmen and fishmongers quickly get down to business. And thanks to the railway's efficiency, you can be sure that your evening cod steak is indeed freshly caught today, ma'am. The greengrocer's principal commodity, the humble but indispensable potato, represents a very big share of the 250,000 tons of vegetables carried every year by the LMS alone. From June to September, they are sorted, sacked, and loaded onto lorries which take them to waiting railway wagons. Then the goods trains take their earthy brown loads to where they're needed most, your greengrocer's stands. The soft fruit harvest calls for special seasonal efforts on the part of the railway. In the Vale of Evesham in June, plum harvesting is in full swing. Here again, a great deal of care is needed to handle this perishable fruit. Specially ventilated fruit wagons are used to make sure that the plums arrive unspoiled. Not all fruit grows at home, however. From Jamaica and the Canary Islands come boatloads of green bananas. At Garston, like Fleetwood and LMS Port, special conveyors are installed to handle the still green fruit without damage as it is transferred to railway vans. These vans are of special design. Steam heated, they help the bananas to ripen whilst on the tray. Hundreds of these vans leave Garston every year. To Camp Hill, Birmingham, a busy, thriving wholesale market, come vast quantities of vegetables and fruit for resale and distribution over a large area. The greengrocer has an abundant and varied supply, with, as we have seen, a fascinating story of transport by rail behind it. Now, how about the butcher? How does the railway help him to solve his problem of supply? At the ports, lamb, mutton, pork and ham is coming off the ships from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland and Canada. This is perhaps one of the most impressive of the railway's services to shopkeepers and your dinner table, this weekly distribution of enormous quantities of fresh and frozen meat. Here are carcasses of beef being loaded into special refrigerator wagons for their journey south. Meat is not only bulky freight to handle, but it is also dangerously perishable. So imported meat also travels in refrigerated containers to the distributing centers. Street, that very important LMS goods station, the meat, like so many of our everyday needs, reaches the end of its journey by rail and is transferred to lorries. Without delay, it is then sent to the thousands of shops that await it. Beef from Scotland, lamb from New Zealand, pork from Canada. Please remember the railway when you see them arrayed at the butcher's. And lastly, in our story of the shopkeepers, we come to the baker. His stock of flour, his freshly made cakes and buns and crisp new loaves originate in the grain, flour and milling offals carried by the railways. 500,000 tons of it by the LMS alone. In August and September, the wheat is harvested and the grain transported to the granaries in hopper wagons. Of course, grain from overseas provides a great part of the load which is handled, and here seen arriving at the flour mill. The hopper wagons are quickly emptied onto a conveyor belt, which carries the grain away to be ground into flour. The golden grain from the farms of England and the Empire, so vital to the country's food supplies, soon becomes white flour, which, when sacked, is ready for another journey, because the railway's task has not ended until the sacks of flour have reached the bakery. Yes, we are a nation of shopkeepers, and our most faithful servant is and always has been the railway.